Hey everybody, this is Felix. We've been getting a lot of complaints about the show that we're fascist, that we're racist, that we've only recently taken off our ban of POC guests, that we tell too many jokes about cum. There was already a cum podcast, and we are flooding the market. We were saturating the market in cum. And usually, like, we take the tact of haters or just people that want to be you. But after enough people talk, you have to listen. And we are changing the direction of the show, finally. And we are going from a political media comedy type podcast to the format that me, Will, and Matt originally fell in love with, the radio play. Starting this episode, we'll start on episode 1 of a radio play that I wrote called The Upset Guv'ner, set in the UK. Let's roll.
The Crecio, get in here right now!
Hey, Papadillo, hey, what do you want, Governor?
The Crecio, I know that you're a bloody illiterate, moronic Portuguese, but I need you to go out there and hand out these Leave the EU Brexit pamphlets so that we can get back into Great Britain.
Oh no, I don't think that's a good idea, Governor. First of all, I was at the Center for Progresino Americano, and Nira Chanjian said that it's a bad choice. It's like Game of Thrones. Second of all, European Union, you answer to a king in Brussels, just like in spiritual life, you have respect for your father in Roma, the Papa.
Enough of this papist drivel! The only thing this has to do with Game of Thrones is that I'll cut your bloody head off if you don't take these pamphlets out to the square!
Oh, but the Governor, you don't want the immigrant, but the immigrant invent the map. Portugal mapped the world, while the English are inbred, and if we stand apart, the Portugal in Lisbon and the English in Nottingham, how do we defeat the Spaniard?
I'm gonna drown you in a bloody barrel of Madeira if you don't shut your bloody gob!
Oh no.
The Crecio!
Time to make the paella. So yeah, that was it, guys.
Is that scene?
Yeah, that scene. We hope you guys worked really hard on this. I've quit all my other writing jobs to just write The Upset Guv'ner. I hope you guys like it. This is what the show is going to be from now on.
That's it for episode 18, right?
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
We'll be back next week, okay? Bye.
That was good.
Roll that Chapo. Okay, it's episode 18, everybody. Episode 18. You probably just heard episode 17. Later in the week, we talked to Robbie Suave of Reason Magazine. If you're a subscriber, you heard that. We had a nice conversation about logical fallacies in the Constitution with one of the flagship writers from Reason Magazine. So that was a lot of fun, but it's episode 18 now. In a little bit, we'll be talking with Jonathan Shainin of The Guardian about the bloody Brexit and what the hell is going on in the UK, isn't it? But it's me, Will Menaker, and once again, joined by Matt Christman.
Hello!
And Felix Biederman.
Oh, yes.
Also known as... Earlier, they played the parts of the Angry Guv'ner and De Crecio, right?
Yeah, we did a lot of research for this part. I only spoke in a Portuguese accent to people this week to stay in character.
I don't have a part yet in the Angry Guv'ner, but I'm hoping to have a cameo at one point.
Oh, I've already cast you. You're a Geoff cunt. He's the lorry driver.
Best of all, I don't have to do any research into that part. But Yeah, so I don't know how your guys' weeks have been going. Mine has been all right. But breaking news at the end of the week, the hottest thing on everyone's news feed is this Brexit business.
It's a bloody shambles, mate.
Oh, no.
So, like I said, in a little bit, we'll be talking to someone who knows what they're talking about and can break this all down for us and basically explain it to us in the only thing that matters, Game of Thrones references. Because if it can't be explained to me like that, I don't understand it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've known Jonathan for a few years. He wrote all the articles that are like, why Jon Snow isn't as smart as he thought. His title is Guardian Longform Editor, but he's told me he wants to, transition more into things like that, and we are here to help him. And that is what the interview is about. We are just comparing Nigel Farage to who he is in both Game of Thrones and Harry Potter.
I'm just hoping that he tells me if it's going to be cheaper for me to buy my McVitie's digestive biscuits down the shop.
The EU is a proof!
Well, we'll be getting to comparing the Brexit to Game of Thrones and Harry Potter in a little bit. Before we do that, I just want to read from a little bit to start things off from an article that compares the Brexit to something else, to something a little bit more personal. And of course, I am referring to Naill Ferguson, who compared the Brexit to his divorce. And now, leading up to this, I was almost 100% convinced that there was no way that they were going to vote to leave the EU. I thought it was going to be close, but I thought it was going to be 52 48.
Yeah, I thought it was totally going to be like the Scottish independence vote.
Yeah, exactly.
A tie going into it, and then a close but not that close in favor of remaining. That's what I thought.
At the last minute, people would break. They wouldn't.
They wouldn't want to risk it. Exactly. Yeah.
However, I am pretty much convinced that the reason that the Leave vote won was this Naill Ferguson article.
100%, no question.
Without a doubt.
Really, really good.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but Naill Ferguson for me is probably at the top of my list of the worst cunts on the planet. The person who, if I even see his name, much less alone see his face, I just want to retch. I want to vomit.
Yeah, Naill Ferguson, you'll usually see his name, then written under it is why people should thank us for colonialism, or sorry, race and IQ matters.
We need to bring back the Black Hole of Calcutta.
Yeah, Naill Ferguson, he would tell you that he's an Edmund Burke conservative, but thinks that Burke was too soft with regards to the Irish.
No, I think he would probably refer to himself as a classical liberal, but...
Oh, yeah, he's that type of cunt.
He's that type of cunt. He's a classical cunt, basically. I think one of my favorite cuts from him most recently was in his giant first volume of his Henry Kissinger biography. In the introduction to that, he claims that basically Seymour Hersh and other critics of Henry Kissinger who have... accused him of, genocide, have done so only because they were jealous of how much pussy he got in the 70s.
No, dude, that's true. How are you going to hate from outside the club when you can't even get into the club? I'm confessing right now that, I fabricated a lot of what happened at East Timor because I was jealous that Henry was going balls deep. And I was fucking my hand. My favorite Naill Ferguson insight is when he goes, John Maynard Keynes, not that good of an economist because he was gay.
Oh no, yeah, he said Keynes believed in sort of Keynesian economics. The genesis for that was that he was gay and didn't care about the future because he wasn't going to have any kids. And he also said Keynes was against Britain entering. World War II? He said Britain was against either World War I, entering World War I or World War II because he was afraid of all the cute German boys that were going to die in the fighting.
Look, this is an educated man's take.
But, actually, like Naill Ferguson, we also analyze everything through com science and racial pathology. So
yeah, but we're good at it. Like his is very simple. He's like Naill Ferguson is at the end of the day an 8th grader where he's like, yeah, he didn't want war because all the guys he had sex with were gonna die. Whereas we're like, yeah, you take the Scots-Irish skull and their propensity for larger chest sizes over waist size. And
They were like, if you like the Kaiser so much, why don't you marry him?
yeah, but we're like, well, Rod Dreher, he's afraid of his own leakage because he equates it with life force since he was a child, and like we're good at this. Like if there was a PhD you could get for cum studies or like racial pathology studies or any of that, like we would have all of the PhD. We'd get multiple ones.
By the way, this is a preview. We're going to be here. We're going to be checking in with Rod Dreher a little bit later in the show. But first, let's dive into Naill Ferguson writing in The Spectator. He says, headline, "Take it from a divorcee. Brexit will cost you dear." He begins, "I suppose there are such things as amicable divorces. Mine wasn't. Like the First World War, it was fought for more than 4 years and ended with the Treaty of Versailles, by which I mean it imposed territorial losses and the payment of annual reparations for a very long time.
And also caused me to become governed by Nazis."
And he says, which brings me to the Brexit, the ultimate divorce. Leave aside the arguments based on economics. Leave aside history too. Instead, permit me to get personal. You want to get a divorce from Europe? Well, very well. Let me explain what divorce is like. That sentence is in italics. Now, I get how you feel. You've reached the point where you just can't stand the EU anymore. You can't stand the nagging regulation. You can't stand the EU inviting her guests round, immigration. And you can't stand the way she takes your money, that net contribution. So enough is enough. You want out.
And you can't stand the way that she won't put out. I mean, God, what's the... I can't think of a comparison. Shit.
Who does England want to fuck outside of... He wants to open up the relationship to include Poland? I don't know. At this stage, most people contemplating divorce are motivated by two things. First, they see only their spouse's defects. Secondly, they fantasize about an idealized alternative future. Often, though not always, this involves a magically perfect new partner. I suppose that would be the United States in this case, because Naill has dedicated his career to... No?
Well, right, but because he's saying don't do it, and he's trying to put him in...
Oh, right.
And what it is they're imagining that they're going to create a new trading bloc with the Commonwealth countries, which we are not part of because we kicked the shit out of them in 1776, USA!
1776, New York City. I'm Hamilton. I didn't get a divorce like Naill Ferguson. I mean, but like, no, that's how smart the Eurosceptics are. Like, why would you trade with people who are, close to the same landmass as you when you could literally go to the other side of the world and trade with Australia and
New Zealand?
It's bloody smashing.
Makes sense.
It's bloody smashing, mate. It's bloody amazing.
He says, no more nagging, no more unwelcome guests. This is the Brexit state of mind. To the committed Leave voter, the European Union has no virtues, only vices. So he goes on for a while, but he says, so you are voting for a divorce, my pro-Brexit friends. And like much divorces, it's going to take much longer than you think and cost much more. That nice yacht you were daydreaming about? Sorry, your money is going on alimony and lawyers' bills, just as the money Boris Johnson and Michael Gove have promised to spend on the NHS cuts in the VAT will be swallowed up by post-Brexit recession and negotiation nightmare.
Oh, Mr. Naill, I forget to tell you that I am a maritime lawyer, not a divorce lawyer.
The lesson I have learned in the nearly 8 years since I and my first wife separated is that divorce is one of the toughest things you can do in peacetime. And the one thing you can never divorce are the problems that turn out to be all your own, the inner demons that you're wrongly blamed on your ex.
I have to say that, shout out to Jeet here. Jeet said that what Naill wrote is exactly like a Carl Diggler column.
No,
this is exactly it. He's like, this is like He's talking like very brat, like the invisible war happens in family court.
and the way Diggler relates everything back to his divorce and family court battles, Naill relates back to the one thing that he knows about, which is World War One. It's the only frame of reference that he has to go back to. He closes by saying, "Today there are a great many Brexiteers who would love to pin all the UK's problems on the EU. Trust me, most of those problems will still be there after the Brexit, along with a heap of nasty new ones, and you'll have no one left to blame but yourself." But yeah, look, I mean, in Niall's world, like, is he like he's still not going back to his ex-wife? He's still with what's her name?
We should let everyone know.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and he's loving it.
He left her after she fell off a fucking horse and was like hospitalized.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a total
guys.
Gingrich
Now this
situation.
This is a total Gingrich situation from Naill Ferguson, and let's give you actually this is the joke at the end here. I'm going to give you now a little bit of the perspective from the other side of World War One. This is from Niall's first wife, Sue Douglas, who I guess in this case is the UK. But
yeah, she represents all the Polish people.
She loves riding horses like a typical rich, unbearable British person. But this is from an article in the Daily Mail titled "Horses Save My Soul." I'm not going to read all of it. We're going to link to this article in the description so you can get the whole thing. But she describes riding. She got the feeling that her husband, who moved to the United States to pursue his successful career, I should say. She felt a distance in their relationship that she couldn't quite put her finger on, so she turned to horses to sort of like balm her soul, until riding on the beach one day, it happened. She writes, I had a really bad accident. It took place on the beach while I was riding alone with my dogs by the sea. Suddenly, my silky pair of ears reared, went right over backwards, and rolled on my head, causing a small mid-brain hemorrhage. And that might have been that. The good husband in this case would have come right home to be by your side. Here's what Sue Douglas says. "I woke up in hospital and only remember events 2 months later. I lost my job. My husband told me he was having an affair and wanted to leave me. He left, then came back, and then left again. My father died. Suddenly I had no money at all." So that's her side of the divorce. You notice she doesn't compare it to any world historical events. It's just kind of life shattering for her. She doesn't have any glib fucking historical analogy to say here.
Yeah, no, I mean it's almost like she experienced the worst parts of the Treaty of Versailles and had to fuck Naill Ferguson.
So anyway. That's Naill and his ex-wife's take on the Brexit, which is fucking unbearable. But let's talk to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. What do you say, guys?
I'm with it.
Let's do it. Okay, we are joined now by Jonathan Shainin, who's coming to us from the Guardian's London offices. Jonathan, how's it going?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Not bad. Can you explain to us and our listeners what the ruddy hell is going on in the UK right now?
I'm not sure anyone here actually knows what's going on. That's been the most notable feature of the last, 3 days. And I think everyone wakes up every morning and kind of feels like, how the fuck is this still happening? Basically, what I guess we figured out on Thursday night, by about 5 a.m. Friday morning, everybody pretty much knew the result was in. And then I think by the time I stayed up to watch and tweet shitty jokes. And then I think by the time I got up at about 10 a.m., Cameron had resigned. But pretty much now nobody knows what's happening. I mean, I think one of the big questions that's actually for real on everybody's mind is are we actually leaving? What happens now?
There does seem to be a sense of shock that a lot of people thought there was no way this was actually going to happen.
Yeah, in hindsight, it sort of... I can't tell if that's stupid or not. I mean, it seems like, now one of the things that's going on, after any election, I guess, is a sort of pissing contest after the fact about who gets to say what it meant. And it feels a bit like the sort of morning after the 2004 U.S. election where, there was this intense argument about whether anyone who didn't vote for George Bush was out of touch with real America. And if you said the Iraq War was a bad idea, David Brooks would show up and tell you that, you didn't understand the heartland because you were like a latte-drinking Volvo driver.
Well, if I could put on my Thomas Friedman hat for a second, I would just be like, well, on my recent trip to London, my lorry driver, which is what they call taxi drivers over there, said he was sick of having curry and just wanted beans on toast. So globalism and its discontents. Shocking.
I mean, really, when you think about it, Britain is like an all-you-can-eat buffet where you can't eat all that you can eat anymore.
Britain is like a sailboat teetering on the edge of a volcano, which is a crossroads. That's my Thomas Friedman.
Britain is Harambe, but if Harambe was a person.
Isn't it? I wonder if they're the EU. The EU is Harambe.
Right, and Britain.
And we dropped Britain into the pen with Harambe, and now there's a decision. Who are we going to kill?
Well, this is what my graphic novel hinges on. So
look, mate, all I know is that I'm sick of bloody Polish plumbers coming round and talk to my bird. Sod off, mate.
This is another thing we wanted to ask about. Kind of is. So we see a lot of talk about racial animus and anti-immigrant animus within the UK. But I think that, there's a lot of American chauvinism looking at that because we assume it's the same anti-immigrant animus that we have in America. But there's a large anti-Polish sentiment because, there you get a different variety of immigrants. So, like, how would you characterize that?
Well, yeah, I mean, so I've only been here for a couple of years, but, my understanding is that sort of the age of kind of intensely anti-Asian racism was kind of in the past, I guess. I mean, there's still lots of it about, but, like, that sort of, the racism of the 70s and the 80s was about that. And that was the time of, like, the British National Party and, people going around saying there ain't no black in the Union Jack. I think, someone told me the other day, there's this famous story from, I guess, the 2010 election where Gordon Brown goes out to, like, some middle-of-nowhere town, I think, and...
Oh, this is the woman, and he got caught on audio,
that's
right?
That's the total, like, in the loop moment. That's the thing.
Explain that story though.
So I wish I could remember where it was.
It was Upper Shropshire, mate.
He goes around meeting these people, and he meets this woman who's called Gillian Duffy, who still gets kind of called out now and again. Like, I'm sure she like appeared in The Sun last week to warn about the EU. She says to him, there are too many bloody migrants here. And then, as he walks away, his mic is still on, and he says, oh, that was a bigoted woman. Someone pointed out to me that, she lived in a town that was, like, already full of people from Bangladesh, but it was, like, specifically, when she said there are too many bloody migrants, she meant, there are too many Poles and Romanians here. It's definitely the case that, like, if you were a racist, you voted Leave. I don't think that everybody who voted Leave was a racist, but I think that, the sort of, like... The kind of lie of the Leave campaign was that migration is totally fine, but there are just too many people, and it's a small island. We don't have a lot of space. All that shit.
Yeah, going off what Felix said, I mean, other than comparing it to Game of Thrones and Harry Potter, what I've been seeing a lot of in the U.S. press is comparing the sentiment of the Leave voter and the sense that won the vote to what Donald Trump stands for in America. Do you think that there's an analog between the Leave vote and Trumpism in America?
Probably less than people think would be my line. I mean, I think the symptoms are similar. People out there are pissed off for like lots of perfectly good reasons, I think, and for some poor reasons, like migrants. I think the big difference between Trump... What's weird, I mean, one of the things that like was so weird about this Leave campaign is that you don't really, as far as I know, have much of a sort of populist tradition in this country. There's not like a history of sort of like, George Wallace style campaigns. Certainly there were racist campaigns in the 60s and 70s and stuff, but like this kind of like angry grassroots thing I think is fairly new. The other thing I think is that there's an extent to which I think you could see Trump as representing this kind of like fucked up American id that there's a certain kind of person who votes for Trump because, he's just like a rich guy with a model wife who like goes around telling everyone to go fuck themselves. And I think in a way the sort of like spirit of Brexit is like the front page of the Sun every day. Fuck off, Johnny Foreigner. We're taking our country back. So, I mean, in a way, it's that same thing. It's the sort of the id of a certain kind of England. But I also think it won in a way that Trump probably can't win because there was like no single individual who could fuck it up. Trump is like, this like ongoing clown show. And I think eventually, as weeks go by, people are just like, I can't vote for that fucking guy.
I have to say that, I hate to say this, but our own beloved baseball crank had a tweet that I actually agreed with, which kind of grossed me out, which is that if Trump was a referendum and not a guy, he might win in the United States. Like, if that sort of if that confluence of impulses and rejection of the status quo was just on the ballot by itself and it wasn't in the persona of this guy who says all this insane shit all the time and is a complete clown, that might actually be a viable candidate, or at least a viable electoral, winner.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to a degree. I mean, I think people here, the other thing I think that you have going on here is that I think so-called ordinary people in the middle of Britain feel even more estranged from their government and from London than their kind of American counterparts. It's weird because it's such a tiny country, but it's just like everything goes through London. London makes all the money. All the rich people are in London. The whole economy revolves around London. Like, people have a lot to be pissed off about. Here
as well, there's this kind of push and pull, especially on the liberal left now, as to, what is appropriate views to ascribe to these people who are pissed off, and whether or not we can read into it legitimate economic grievances with globalization or just rank bigotry and provincialism. And it's the same thing with Trump. Like, to what extent is it giving these people too much credit, and to what extent has Labor and the Democratic Party lost out on what should be a natural constituency for people who have seen their wages and quality of life diminish in the face of globalization and immigration?
Yeah, I think that debate is going on really heavy right now, and it's like, the thing, if any of you have paid much attention this morning, there's a sort of slow rolling and what appears to be a bumbling coup underway in the Labour Party, but perhaps...
Before we go into that, I want to read something from an actual expert to put this all in perspective, from Governor Howard Dean. 2 of 2. Tories and Labour parties collapsing, making way for the only coherent and sane party left in England.
The MEK?
The Liberal Democrats.
Yeah, I was going to say, I realize the Lib Dems are paying him like the MEK used.
Yeah. Do you think that they're going to start doing...
We need to, people are pissed off about immigrants and we're going to do something about it. But there's a sort of funny way in which it's sort of, I think, it's not like hostility to immigrants is not some sort of like deeply beloved indigenous British value, like stiff upper lips.
Well, that's one of the reasons I find this debate so frustrating, because this either-or idea, can nobody process the idea that 30-plus years of this neoliberal rule that has slowly eroded the standard of living of the large percentage of people in a lot of these countries like the U.S. and Great Britain can't contribute to increase in racism, can't be the thing that it springs from? That seems to me to be the obvious answer, but I think what you see with these people like, arguing over who can be claim to be more in touch with the people is it's just a fake argument between people who don't want to confront the root cause. And that's the thing that most reminds me of a similarity between the Brexit vote and what we're having here with Trump and Hillary, is in both cases you have this often racist rejection of the status quo that springs from legitimate grievances as to the way that neoliberalism has impoverished people's lives, and standing opposed to it is just this smug status quo that offers nothing. Like, the Remain campaign seemed to me to be totally dominated by this idea of, well, the EU's not perfect, but what else? It's better, and no idea, no vision for addressing any root issues that people are having. Just like, it'll be the alternative is just too unknown and scary and or racist. There is no real positive argument for the EU, just like there's no in the US positive argument really in favor of the sort of broad status quo that Hillary Clinton is defending. And that makes me just think that the only hope to really counteract this populist wave in a way that doesn't require giving into atavistic attitudes towards immigrants is to offer an actual goddamn alternative to neoliberalism, which is why this attempted coup against Corbyn is just so mind-blowing. I mean, it seems like his strain of labor is the only thing that could combat this thing, not more fucking Blairite bullshit.
Could you explain like what's going on right now in labor about how they're trying to get rid of like the sort of Blairite wing of labor is trying to get rid of Corbyn right now, right?
Yeah, I would go back 1 second though to what Matt just said, which is like I think it's not just that these kind of nativist attitudes come up when people see that there's not too much else on offer for them. But I think that, the less that kind of economics works for people, the more that politicians realize that kind of nativist arguments are the only... I mean, it used to be, right, the nativist arguments are the only thing you can do, right? I mean, it used to be to me that the sort of, right, the essence of kind of post-war Western liberal politics was you promise people they would be better off if they voted for you. I sound like an Adam Curtis movie now.
Well, yeah, and now, there's nobody can credibly because all of the main economic decisions are basically been out of the hands of elected officials by their own sort of connivance. They have no ability to make any kind of credible claim to making people's lives better. So yeah, you're right. All they're left with is
I think this is particularly interesting here because it's like that. Cameron and Osborne together, I think, made people's lives quite a lot worse in the last 5 years pursuing a completely bonkers austerity policy. And I think an irony of this is that, a lot of things that people in this country are mad about, like, overcrowded schools and, long waiting lists at the National Health Service, basically are which they blame on the EU, are basically about cuts that have been made by the UK government. So I think, in a way, what has happened here is that, like you were just saying, Matt, the status quo doesn't have anything to say. But in fact, it's sort of like the less that the status quo has to say, I think, the more that the status quo sort of stomps its feet up and down and says, I'm the status quo.
Hold on. I'm going to do my own Adam Curtis movie right now.
Oh, yeah.
Elites in the UK and United States thought that they could liberate people from all the old forms of control. But a strange thing happened on the way to this new utopia. Memes. Cue music from John Carpenter's The Thing.
I think what's happening in labor right now, there's the shadow cabinet, which is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a pretend opposite to the actual cabinet.
We make fun of people saying that shit, making comparisons to Harry Potter, but something called the shadow cabinet literally does like something from Harry Potter.
The shadow cabinet is a lot like what you used to see on the political website DeviantArt, where Hillary Benn, before he was sacked, he had to go like, hello, I'm Dark Hillary, or like, I'm Dark Jeremy, and they had to give into their dark side until they are the ruling party. And this is
a deep secret of England is that it actually is just like Harry Potter. It's the only legitimate comparison to Harry Potter is this country, which is run. I promise you, I hope no one in Britain is listening to this, is run by the principles of the Sorting Hat. That's how that British society
That's the class
is the
system,
Sorting
yeah.
Hat. So the Corbyn thing, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, basically, I think they all see a chance to kind of knock him out.
That seems crazy though, because he's doubled the size of the Labour Party, right, since taking over. And the unions have said that they're supporting him. I mean, where are they going to get any kind of leverage on him?
The unions are with him. I mean, I think that I tread delicately on this subject. I don't think he's doing a really good job necessarily. But the people who hate him the most are not very good people, maybe is the best way to understand it. The British equivalent of the kind of New York, Washington kind of like political journalist, circle jerk.
An Excel-a-derp, if you will.
Yeah, it's really intense here. I mean, it's like 10 times as intense. So, I mean, I think that the Corbyn proposition is exactly what I think it was Matt who just said, which is, look, we're actually able to go to the people with an alternative. That's the promise. I think the people who are gunning for him now basically are scared shitless that they're going to lose their seats if there's a snap election. So basically, if whoever becomes head of the Tory party, which, maybe Boris Johnson, whatever, there's a sense that that person will probably be inclined to call an election right away as a way of kind of cementing their power, or just because, Gordon Brown became prime minister in 2007 and he didn't call an election. He waited until 2010, and then everyone was like, oh, you're not legitimate. You didn't have an election to back your selection as prime minister.
Are they gonna vote to fucking leave? Are they gonna do it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just like a funny sign of the spirit of the moment is that like 1 million people seem to have shared something that a commenter wrote on the Guardian site.
I saw that, yeah.
Yesterday morning. Teebs, I don't know if anyone's tracked him down. He's like a little micro celebrity.
Bloody Teebs, mate. He's a bloody legend already. He's going to be on Celebrity Big Brother next season.
I think, so his point is basically that Cameron has refused to like pull this mythical Article 50 trigger that would start the process of negotiating the exit, and that now nobody is going to have the balls to pull it because everyone knows it's a disaster. You could have a situation, I think some people are proposing, okay, Parliament can just say no, we're not going to do this. And it's kind of an amazing thing, going back to what you were saying about, the referenda versus Trump. In Parliament, which has about 330 conservatives and about 200 and something Labour MPs, in Parliament there's like a massive majority for Remain. It's basically like there's 650 people in Parliament. It's like, 500 to 150 in favor of Remain. So I think that the one thing you've heard some sort of sensible liberal and left people say here is that if there's a snap election and, Boris leading the Tories will be the anti-EU party and Labour will be the pro-EU party, that, if the Labour Party wins the election on an explicitly pro-EU platform, they could then claim, okay, we've got a mandate every bit as good as your shitty referendum.
Yeah.
To not go in. But so I don't know. Some people are saying that's why this is the time. I don't think anyone thinks Corbyn, even the people I know who like Corbyn a lot, I don't think anyone thinks he's like a real genius political operator. My personal pet theory, which is so obscure, but I'm going to tell you all anyway, is that his sidekick, who's a guy called John McDonnell, who is kind of as radical as Corbyn and like a little more ruthless, will do a kind of House of Cards sort of thing. And McDonnell is currently the shadow chancellor. And McDonnell, I think, could hypothetically say to the rebels, look, you're not going to beat us if we have another election of the membership. But if you push Jeremy out and then you're stuck with me. I don't know. Everyone thinks that's not going to happen, but I find it.
Jonathan, that was very nice, but that was a 2014 reference, House of Cards. Now it is a Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's like Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones?
I mean, before there was Game of Thrones, there was House of Cards, and the show that Jonathan is referring to, yes, there was a British version. We're not talking about that version. And, like, what is going to happen in UK politics is like what Francis, the House Cards, says on House of Cards when he goes, sometimes the only way to skin a fox is to come around the bend. He's Billy Crystal's jazz man.
Bop do dwee, bop do zow, bop do zappa do zappa do zow.
Okay, I have one last question before we go, which is, assuming that this thing actually goes forward and Britain actually leaves the EU, what will be like the real world, like concrete effects on the lives of people in the UK once they leave?
Is Tesco going to stay open, mate? That's what I need to know. I spend every day down Tesco trying to get me bloody mobile to work.
That's actually pretty good. That's pretty good.
He's been practicing all show.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. I can't do it at all. It's really laughable.
Matt has been doing the Great Britain equivalent of blackface this entire interview. I apologize to everyone listening to this.
We're putting a content warning before the show. We're calling the show Matt Do Better. Matt, rethink this. We're on it. Don't worry, guys.
I was convinced this was going to launch Chapo to the top of the UK iTunes charts, but I'm concerned.
We're going to be calling it Chapo Cunt House to fully understand their culture, to speak their language.
I think Chapo Trap Abbey.
Yeah.
Is
yes,
what we
We're
want.
going to change the duck hunt to the bloody glassing. Everyone we're going to class of bloody media cunt.
I just want to say to all of anyone who's a UK listener of the show, I respect you. I love your culture. I've adopted your culture. I am a Whovian now. Yeah. That is my
English
religion.
people, don't be fooled by what Matt is doing. I respect everything about you. I repress all my emotions. I want to see tits in the newspaper.
There we go.
Yeah, just all of the stuff. I'm psych. I don't show my emotions in public. Dude, my son's a poof. See, I can even talk like you guys. I've been practicing.
All right. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us and giving us the perspective from across the pond.
Thank you for having me.
Bob's your uncle, mate.
Cheers.
Matt, do better.
Okay, here's some stuff you need to know about Heather. Maybe you already know. She's smart, very smart, and fashionable. She helps artists and actors. And she's seriously serious about bringing people together. All kinds of people. Sharing ideas so good ideas can grow. Heather Possesta and Partners was recently named one of the country's top 25 government relation firms by the National Law Journal. GQ said she's one of the most powerful people in Washington. She keeps Congress in line. Well, sort of. She tries. She brings people to the table. So we have food at our table, and every day we have something to eat. Just a year ago, she hosted this very dinner right here in D.C. She has helped raise over $250,000. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. That feeds a lot of kids. A lot of kids. Like me. And me. She even decorated cookies to raise money. That was last year's Cookies and Custard event. She does all kinds of stuff for us. We like Heather. We like her a lot. She's smart. Very smart. You should listen to her. Yeah. What she does makes a difference. A real difference. She made a difference in my life. Mine too. So we're giving her a shout out. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Podesta. Thank you.
Okay, we are back once again. That was Jonathan Shainin of The Guardian talking about the Brexit, and thanks to him for doing that. Okay, moving along, back to news in the States. Tired of all this bloody Britain talk. Let's go back to America, folks. Matt, you had something lined up that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's something I just found out about, and it really disturbed me. It's one of those things where once you find out that the world has this in it, you can never think about the world the same way, and certainly not as positively as you ever could before. It's actually something that's happening right now as we speak. By the time you listen to this, it will have been over, but right now it's happening in Pasadena, California. It's called Politicon. Now, I don't know if anyone here remembers DashCon. Do you remember that?
What is that?
It was a disastrous attempt to do a Tumblr convention. It was a year or two ago.
Right.
Tumblr teens paid hundreds of dollars to thrash around in a fetid ball pit.
Yes, I remember where I met my wife. If that's what you're asking, yes.
All right, well, take that. Imagine that.
I met atheist Artemis there, if you want to bring that up again.
All right, so imagine that. Add to that a convention for the most horrific sexual perversion you can think of. Something like a pedo furries or like scat vor. Anything like that, put them together, they're not going to approach the horror of Politicon. So, according to its own creators, this is what Politicon is. On their About page, they say, it starts with a quote from Bernie Sanders. There is too much shouting. There is too much making fun of each other. Or is there? From Ted Cruz giving his best Darth Vader to Trump's litany of quotables to Hillary's budding interest in Snapchat, disappearing messages, the 2006 campaign trail is serving up more than the usual amount of fodder and funny, and that's just from the candidates alone. This June, Politicon will be toasting to a second term as the quintessential nonpartisan event of the year. In honor of the impending presidential election, we're upping the ante with some of the biggest names in politics and the wittiest voices in comedy and entertainment, representing all sides of the political spectrum. Join us at the Pasadena...
we're not invited to this?
I know,
Yeah,
it's
what the
bullshit.
fuck, man?
It's bullshit.
Who's in charge of bookings?
Join us...
Ben.
Fucking Dreyfus dropped the ball again.
God
we gotta
damn
fire
it.
that guy.
Note to producer Ben Dreyfus. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Join us at the
God damn it,
Pasadena
man.
Convention Center for a full weekend of panels, debates, TV and movie screenings, art podcasts, comedy shows, Q&As, book readings, interviews, meets and greets, art exhibitions, and music performances. With 12 rooms ranging from 50-seaters to large-scale auditoriums, you'll be able to get up close and personal with political heavyweights, revel in the endless humor with the likes of James Carville and Sarah Palin, dissect documentaries and parodies with filmmakers, and maybe even interact with a few of history's greatest leaders. Now is your chance to entertain democracy. So this is a nonpartisan political convention. And most horrifyingly, it's the second year. They had one last year, and they had like 9,000 people at this thing. This is for people who have memorized every Aaron Sorkin speech to tell to somebody who, if they get cut off at the line at Arby's or something like that.
Let me just start off by saying that the only way that sort of press release could read any darker is if it began with the words, have you ever actually tried to count to 6 million?
Yeah, I mean, these people are paying, it's cost $50 for a weekend for a regular ticket. There are VIP tickets cost over $250, so that you can get sweated on by Frank Luntz. And these people are paying this money.
I mean, he is technically a political heavyweight. He's a big boy.
They're paying this money to bask in the charisma of these beltway reptiles like Carville and fucking Paul Begala. But I'll lead off some of the events that they're going to have.
Yeah, what's the lineup here? Because this is Comic-Con where 10,000 people line up and sleep overnight so they can see 3 minutes of the new World of Warcraft trailer. But this is what's the equivalent of that at Politicon?
Well, it's a lot of they do live podcast broadcasts, including the 538 podcast. There's a live recording of that.
Oh my god, you get to see Harry Enton in person?
You get to see
holy shit, how can you have that much charisma in a room?
It's astounding.
Okay, we have to try to get booked at Politicon next year.
Do. And the thing is, it's a super, it's the Ron Fournier wet dream in that it's super bipartisan / nonpartisan. They have an event that's a gun panel about how guns are cool. One of the members of the panel, by the way, is John Ratzenberg from Cheers for some reason. And then
he's super conservative.
He is. And then they have a screening of a expose of the NRA the next hour. Well, it's basically that horrible video that Sean Penn and Kid Rock made in 2012. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
That was good.
Hey man, to freedom. To freedom.
Oh,
it's
man.
This thing is that spirit. And it's very sad and low rent, and it's this. There's a million panels, but it's all the same people. Ann Coulter's in a million things. S.E. Cupp's running around. Begala and Carville. They have a Daily Show retrospective with a ton of former Daily Show hosts or Daily Show correspondents. None of whom were even on Stewart. We're talking Kilborn era. That's
the Craig Kilborn,
Vance
Beth
DeGeneres. Vance DeGeneres, for example. These are the people we're talking about. So it's really on the pulse. There's a screening of a new documentary called Nerd Prom inside Washington's wildest week.
Now you know what I have to ask about the Nerd Prom documentary.
What?
Is it directed by Werner Herzog?
He's the only person who could, but sadly he's not.
There's they just go up to Chris Eliza, but then there's just one of those scene missing things from a 9 Inch Nails video or a silent movie, and Werner goes, I could not show the world what happened next. And then the last thing you hear is, Trump is going to have to turn viral fail into viral win.
He actually, Werner Herzog for the Nerd Prom documentary, he actually resurrects Klaus Kinski, who shows up and does the actual address. Instead, he fills in for Larry Wilmore and just goes, "You are shies, all of you. I will whip your stupid faces."
Zuerst entferne den Balken aus deinem Auge und dann sieh zu, wie du den Splitter aus meinem Auge ziehst.
That'd be way better. I haven't seen Nerd Prom, but I think that sounds like an improvement all around. You get to watch a debate between Ann Coulter and Van Jones. You've always wanted to do that.
Wow.
Oh,
That should be productive.
Okay, so that's the most horrifying stuff that's on the first day. So you get another day. That's the beauty of this. You pay $50, you get both days. So then we've got a lot of panels and stuff. A screening of Shrek for President, which I don't.
What?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, hey, whoa! Is Weird Twitter running this thing? Is this Weird Twitter?
There's a panel called "The Future of the Middle East," which features a bunch of just hacks and pundits and stuff, and David Horowitz.
Oh, that's just
okay. Ooh, good.
He's putting a little spice on there. He's putting a little spice.
I love the idea. It's like it's two just complete milksop. Just like never say anything. Well, the Middle East is a land of contrast. A lot of things could happen in the future, and then David Horowitz just frothing at the mouth about how we need to.
I'm David Fuck from the Peace Institute, and I think with a proper allocation of JDAM, Muhammad was a pedophile.
So if you didn't get enough awesomeness from the Ann Coulter Van Jones debate the first day, second day it has a debate between Sally Kohn and Ben Shapiro himself. You can jerk off.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Okay, sorry.
You can jerk off to the no true Scotsman fallacies. It's these busting out left and right.
Well, I don't know why you're not you have two intellectual titans. You have the guy who's afraid of bathrooms and the MSNBC lady who isn't Rachel Maddow, who no one can remember. I would pay $50 just for that.
Oh, absolutely.
I would pay $500.
There's a conservative comedy with Adam Yenzer.
Who the fuck is that?
I don't know. He won last year's award.
They couldn't even book Crowder. What the fuck?
I know Crowder is not even on here. Amazingly, Sarah Palin.
Yeah, this is this is Crowder's shit. This is
totally.
This
is if he can't get this gig, what the fuck? I mean, is he living in a dumpster at this point? How the hell does he? If he's not here, where the hell is he?
He's filming videos where he's like, I sucked my friend's dick in Target to own the liberals.
Sarah Palin is in conversation with James Carville. Something we all.
Oh wow!
And this one.
Here's what I gotta say about this: all these panels and a conversation with Ann Coulter and Van Jones, all this shit just proves to me what kayfabe this all is for these people.
Oh yeah.
It reminds me of James Carville and Mary Matlin.
Yes.
They're both.
They could put the politics aside and fuck.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that both of those two fucking insects haven't killed each other 20 years ago shows how little they care about any of this.
They don't care.
Sometimes the fox gotta lay down with the hands. That's my James Carville impression. That's a new impression just for this show.
It's really good.
Well, you say that a Republican and a Democrat don't get along with each other, but sometimes you gotta park a trailer and then do a truck.
I know that we've been enjoying all of these, and these all have sounded fun, but this next one, genuinely nauseated me. Trump the Musical. A well-researched hip-hop opera that spotlights some of the most interesting aspects of today's presidential race. That's the only thing we have here in the description.
Is that brought to you by Jib Jab, the geniuses behind Jib Jab?
Well, my thing is, I think it's like a Trump Hamilton.
I'm not building a wall. I'm signing them all. All the declarations, all the constitutions. Dr. Vox says, I represent what Donald is not. Well, I just got to say for democracy, I'm a thought. Hamilton.
That's going to be better, whatever there is, whatever they put together.
1776.
Pasadena, California. If you've ever wondered about what Islam's going to be like in the 21st century, I'm sure we all have. Well, you can find out at a panel hosted by Robert Davi.
Wait. Robert Davi.
Robert Davi.
The super right-wing actor.
Yes.
Is hosting a panel on what Islam is like in the 21st century.
Yes.
I'm going to guess
There's a picture of him on the website.
He's going to be kind of racist.
There's a picture of him on the website. He's got a baller fucking fedora.
I fucking love Robert Davi, by the way.
Oh, he's great.
I mean, the question.
He said one of the greatest lines in history. It must be weird when to have a job where people don't come on you.
Oh, showgirls, hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, the question, all hours of the day, when I'm fucking my wife and I can't achieve climax, when I'm trying to ignore my children, the question I'm always thinking about is what is Islam in the 21st century going to be like? And finally, I get to find out.
Trill as fuck, man. It's going to be awesome.
So Islam 2.0. Can you say a Ramadan app? I
can. No, on this panel, actually, surprise guest Adam Baldwin is gonna shock everyone by telling that he's now a Wahhabist cleric.
Natural transition.
There's also there's a debut of the Hillary's America trailer with commentary from Dinesh D'Souza. That's later.
That's fucking awesome. By the way, when Hillary's America drops, we're definitely doing an episode on it.
Fuck yeah, we are.
I'm paying money to see that movie for you guys,
question.
for sure.
Dude, I'm paying double money. I want to fill Dinesh's books.
When we go see the Hillary's America movie, I'm so dedicated to you, the fans, that I'm going to cam the movie. I'm going to record me and this off the screen with a video camera in the theater, and then bootleg the Hillary's America movie because I don't think enough people are going to see it.
Oh, fucking Periscope that
really
shit.
Important.
And there's also Fugelsang is there.
Oh, yes.
There is a Frank Luntz focus group that you can take part in.
Okay, fuck this. We're going to this next year.
Yeah, we are going.
We have to go to this. So, guys, 2017 Politicon. Look for the Chapo Trap House debate with Ben Shapiro and our feelings sesh with Glenn Beck.
The Huffington Post called it the Coachella of politics. Not kidding.
Oh,
that's
my
on their
God,
front page.
dude.
I'm gonna be dressed as a sitting bull when I go,
dude,
and on Molly the whole time.
I wish this was the fucking White Shark concert of politics.
Great white, but yes.
Great white.
Okay,
great white, but yes.
Oh fuck! God damn it.
We'll say, hopefully we'll go. It'll be the Altamont of politics when we're there next year. We're gonna actually.
I'm gonna bring a sawed-off billiard cue.
Nira Tandon is gonna hire us to do security, but pay us in kratom in advance.
After finding out this is the second year this is taking place, I want to read you guys a quote that sums up what we feel about it. It happened, therefore it can happen again. This is the core of what we have to say. From Primo Levi.
Okay, 2017, Chapo, we're going to Politicon, definitely.
Yes, we are.
Dude, we're going to get laid as hell when we go there. These conventions are just big fuckfests. Yeah, I'm going to take mushrooms and just get stuck in the signing of the Declaration of Independence Oculus Rift for 6 hours. I think we should now segue into our update into the world of Rod Dreher. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Yeah, everybody. Rod Dreher is once again having unreality issues.
Rod Dreher's unreality issues continue to manifest themselves in a series of missives sent from what are either the worst people in the planet or imaginary fictions that he's created to entertain himself, living in his sort of Benedictine monastery that he calls suburban Louisiana.
A lot of people ask us, who the fuck is Rod Dreher? Well, you remember at the end of the TV show St. Elsewhere, where it turned out the entire drama of the hospital took place inside a snow globe being looked at by an autistic child? Imagine if all the people who lived in that snow globe were trans sex maniacs, and that's what it is to be Rod Dreher.
So You'll remember a few episodes back, we did a reading where he passed along an amazing story from a friend who, along with her teenage son, was assaulted by a gang of transsexuals at a Captain America Civil War movie theater experience. Rod is at it again. This is another story that he passes along. This is at his blog. The title of the piece is, in quotations, "Knowing is too hard." And Rod, this is in response to a piece Rod wrote called "What? Trans? Here?"
Come on.
And Rod says his email was so startling, I decided to give it its own separate post. I have edited it slightly to protect privacy. His friend is just referred as F word, actually. So again, this whole post is just this email from a reader. So I'm gonna read it now. So it says, this is Rod's reader emailing in. He says, "I just got back from state, in brackets again. We must protect the innocent here. Couldn't possibly give away the state."
Yeah, dude. If the gay Contras track this guy down, they'll light his house on fire. If they know the state, they can figure it out. They're gonna backtrack the IP.
He says, "Visiting my in-laws and my wife's childhood friends, and we just had this exact same experience. My wife's friends do well. The husband is a union guy and makes more money than I do. Of course, he's in a corrupt union, probably just sitting on his ass all day. But he goes, I like him, but he's what progressives might consider to be a problem. He has 3 kids, the oldest being a girl going into 7th grade. After a few beers, he says things like, 'Look, I'm okay with anything, just as long as they ain't gay, and no black guys. See what I mean?'
Damn progressives! Judging
Yeah, what I love
guy.
what I love about this, he says, this is a guy who progressives might consider to be problematic. What does everyone else supposed to consider this guy? The type of guy who will casually let drop that I'm okay with anything as long as they're not fags or black guys.
Truth teller?
Yeah, they're politically incorrect.
So he goes, we're having a nice dinner, and he says, well, we were talking school stuff, and the mom very casually drops the news that there was a trans kid in the 7th grader's school. My wife and the mom went to school with the mother of the trans kid. I guess she was weird and goth and all the rest.
No, that's what did it.
They
you
agreed
get a little goth in there, and then boom. Trans.
It's a slippery slope from black eyeliner to just the whole, all the way.
What the hell's wrong with you? Look like a Puerto Rican whore. Make me sick.
They agreed that if the trans thing had been a thing back then, the mom would have been the most likely person to declare. Fair or not, I don't know, but there it is. I don't understand what he's talking about.
Well, first of all, I like the idea that in everyone in Rod Dreher's universe, they're like, yeah, just getting the friends together for drinks, dinner, laughs. Always the conversation seems to be like, who's the most likely trans infiltrator? Who's like trans people? Like that actually is all that we talk about. But like, it's just middle America.
He treats it like it's either a viral contagion or like a pod person thing. He talks about how being worried about the trans people in bathroom, and I'm more and more convinced that he actually means that he's afraid they're going to pop out of the toilet like in Ghoulies.
He goes. The reader goes on. At any rate, my wife's friends sort of just mentioned that this girl came out as trans. Let's say her name was Mary. Well, my wife's friend sees her at a park this summer and says, "Hi, Mary." And the former Mary very testily replied, "I am not Mary. I am Mark now." He's not making up names here. He's like, I'm not M-word anymore. I'm M-word, masculine. My wife's friend and her union husband sort of rolled their eyes and looked mystified, but left it as that. I was surprised. The no black guys and no gay dad seemed to be taking it in stride. So I said, so where is the kid showering? What I love about that is like he's at dinner with this, a guy he knows to be a bigot, and it seems to think that he'll be simpatico on this issue, but he sort of shrugs it off. So he's like, let me needle him a little bit more and get the juicy reaction out of him. So I said, where is the kid going to shower? The kid gets to shower wherever she says the school the school district will lose their federal money. Shout out to Robbie Suave. They looked at me and said, look, I had 2 heads. The mom said, I think that the school told the kid to shower in a faculty locker room, and they were okay with that. I let her know that this will be fine as long as another kid doesn't push it further than that. Again, he's just inventing these nightmare scenarios to get outraged about that haven't happened. Still, they seem to be okay with it mostly because, I guess, who's it hurting? Yeah, good question. Until I said, well, yeah, the parents of that kid aren't nuts. You throw a biological girl into a boy's locker room and something bad will happen fast. The problem is going to be when there's a biological boy who wants to shower with your kid. The dad looked like I had hit him with a pipe wrench. No, he said, that ain't happening. It ain't happening because it's not happening.
No, it's not.
But Rod's friend says, I said, sure it is. The Obama administration's advisory says it is. I told him about the male-to-female trans kid in Alaska who medaled at the state competition. I'm telling you that this guy looked actively wounded. Like I said, I was lying to him or something. So congrats to this guy for ruining a perfectly good dinner party.
I like Rod's dispatches because he's like, hey, Rod, long time listener, first time caller. Just want to tell you that I also ruined an event with the same trans fixation that you have. I am also now a weird, lonely person who collects emails about people who yell about trans people.
This is like
looking forward.
This is like the adult version of like the fucking friendless edgelord teenager who the parents can't take them anywhere because they'll bring up something dark and twisted and just be like, what? I'm interested in it. Why are you so offended?
Yeah, like National Review Online is the new Rotten.com.
Yeah,
there's some really sick shit. There's some really sick shit on here.
You want to see something really ugly and disgusting? Check this out. But okay, so he goes. He said he couldn't believe it. I said, you haven't heard about this and that other thing? He hadn't heard of these things, but he just never thought there would be a penis in the girls' locker room.
I mean, in all my years thinking about the girls' locker room, as I do every day, I had never pictured a penis in there. That did not belong to me.
He says he is still having trouble believing it. He fucking freaked these squares out, man. He fucking...
And it seems like the crux of his complaint is that this asshole, racist, homophobic guy wasn't also transphobic.
Yeah.
It's like the racism and homophobia were good, fine. It's like, but why aren't you also freaking out about trans people? What the fuck?
Yeah, this guy.
He was rubbing his hands together, thinking of dinner, like on the car ride on his wife over. He's like, "Oh man, we're gonna get some good transphobia tonight." And then they get there, and he just falls flat. And he's like, "What? Fuck."
What happens in this article is it's the split between Cruz voters and Trump voters. Like they're getting along.
Yes.
They're like the union guys, like. Hip hop style quarterbacks, and the Cruz voter, not really a sports watcher, but he can tell you're being racist, so he's like, yeah, cool.
He's like, yeah, why doesn't J.R. Smith put a shirt on?
Yeah, God. Hey, Russell Wilson, why don't you cool it with the raps? But then the Cruz voters like, all right, we've had a lot of fun tonight talking about the knockout game and like if a rapper tried to hold his gun sideways and Marine shot him. But let's get serious here.
Let's talk about a penis in a girl's locker room.
Yeah, let's talk about 7th grade genitalia. And the Trump voter is like, what? No? Hold on. No, I want to talk about how Mexicans are rapists. And the Cruz voter is like, what?
The Trump voter is getting horny thinking about this. He's having the opposite reaction. Like, he was expecting revulsion, but he's like, oh, tell me more. What? You can get a boy in a girl's locker room now? Okay.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm going to be signing up for Lifetime Fitness again. And the Cruz voter is like, oh, my God, I am going home to write Rod.
So he closes it out with like the typical sort of profound hysteria that these things eventually devolve into. And he says, this is not a religious family. I have never ever known them go to church for any reason. Neither does anyone in their extended families. It's not like this is a huge secret. They honestly just don't know because knowing is too hard. And again, this is a guy who will police the family in terms of kids being gay. He will make his views on race known to his kids. So he's a good guy in that respect.
Yeah.
He's falling down. He's just not willing to. He just doesn't want to know about this next level of degeneracy. It's not like he's not willing to go out on a limb and say unpopular things, many of which I disagree with, of course.
Yeah. Sure,
But he just can't compute the trans stuff. Even though there is one at their school, he just sits there saying no. I don't know what they do if it hits. I bet they just live with it. I doubt they can afford a religious high school. The cheapest one in their area is like $21,000 a year. The kids will think it's normal, and the dad's objections will get filed away with his retrograde views on race. Rod sums things up in italics. He says, they honestly just don't want to know, because knowing is too hard. This is true. This is true. This is profoundly true. If priests and pastors are not speaking clearly and directly to their congregations about this, they are failing them.
These fuckers don't go to church. What does that even have to do with anything?
This guy doesn't. He's too busy watching, screaming the N-word at Sunday football to go to church. What do you mean? Everyone who goes to Rod Dreher's type of church, they're already thinking about trans people all the time. This is the last line in Boys in the Hood, after Ricky dies and Ice Cube.
Yeah.
He's like, man, either people don't know or they just don't care. Except Ice Cube, he just saw somebody go in a different bathroom than their biological assigned sex at birth, and he goes, man, people don't know what goes on here. They just don't care.
Like Boys in the Hood, right before the credits roll, there's end titles where they tell you that Rod's friend was beaten to death in a women's Target bathroom. 3 months later, he was killed by a trans gang at the Target bathroom.
He was gonna do the Facebook meme and beat up the trans person, but it turns out that due to his congenital
he was
failure,
just too much of a pussy.
There were too many of them. He was overwhelmed. It was like Iwo Jima.
Okay, so that was Rod.
Thank
please
you, Rod.
Thank you, Rod. Once again.
Rod, bringing it again.
Yeah, bringing the fire.
Once again, that was great. So, at the end of last week's show, I mentioned that we're doing a reader. We opened up our the Chapo email account. That's chapotraphouse@gmail.com to reader questions, and we've got quite a few of them to read. We got a lot of them. We don't have enough time to get to all of them, so we got some great stuff though from a lot of people. So if I don't read them, I'm sorry. I will try to get to them in a future show. We had a great Dear Prudie style letter that wrote us an advice column, but seeking advice about whether to send their kid to a Gulen founded charter school. And then someone actually compared us to Roberto Bolaño, which I thought was awesome. But those are too long to do now. But I want to say thank you to the people who wrote those. I'm genuinely touched by both of them. But what do you say? Do you want to answer some reader questions real quick?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Dear W, recently I was in a bathroom and.
Okay, let's begin with Jessica. Asks us, Dear Grey Wolves, how might I apply for an unpaid internship? I have no skills, a lot of wrong opinions, and my bed is just a mattress on the ground. So I'll say, Jessica, you've already met all the criteria necessary.
Yeah, Jessica, I'm recording from my mattress on the ground right now, and I know less than nothing. And I'm like a host.
Yeah, no, I'd say, Jessica, for anyone who wants to apply to be a Chapo intern, I would say if you're stupid and sleep in a sleeping bag on the ground, you're already halfway there. But maybe just do send us a personal essay, a quick one, no more than let's say 500 words about what Chapo means to you. But you have to do it in the style of one of the people that we've featured as a major character in the Chapo canon. You can do Rod Dreher, you can do Ross Douthat, you can do
Michael Weiss.
Extra
credit if you do spy Michael Weiss, agent Michael Weiss.
Yeah, so send us a personal essay, but in the style of one of the Chapo All-Stars from any of the shows that we've done.
And if you could give us any proof that you have done anything in your day-to-day life to normalize fascism, that would really also help a lot.
We really appreciate that.
Next question is from Colin Gray. He writes, long-time listener, first-time emailer. This one is addressed to you, Felix. He says, Felix, your arms are really nice. Have you ever kissed a boy? Asking for a friend / me.
No, I've never kissed a boy, but like one time in college, with this really, like when I was going to college in Chicago many years ago, we got really drunk and my friend accidentally kicked me in the head. And like it didn't knock me out, but it definitely like rung my bell. And I sort of like fell back, and like to wake me up, he like kissed me. I didn't like it, not because I'm homophobic, but like his lips were dry. So like, you know, I didn't initiate the kiss or the like chain of events that led to the kiss, but like, yeah, no, it's happened.
Okay, next question is from Cameron Wilson, who asks, hi, what is up with the full communism folks on Twitter who hate the Trap House? I saw some of the dialectic in all caps, but was just left perplexed. Thanks. Cameron, you're not alone in that regard. I'm left perplexed as well, but as you know, if you were following us this week, you did notice that we've gotten some of our haters have actually cracked the code, and I would say that they hate us so much because they've figured out that we, in fact, are, like, if you knew the truth, you would hate us too. And the truth is that we're, you know, fascists and deep state, like, agents of the Democratic Party, basically.
No, yeah, definitely. Like, we were both agents of the Saudi deep state, of Neera Tanden personally. And, like, I wake up every day trying to bring the Third Reich.
Yeah, no, the sincerest answer to this question is they hate us because we've committed the cardinal sins in their universe of being funny and liked by more than could fill a room at a panel at Left Forum.
Yeah, no, today I, like, saw, like, another guy bitching about it, and I was like, I wonder what's up with this guy. And, like, because I'm a piece of shit, I, like, immediately clicked on his media grid. And he like looks like the British Demonius X, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like they're mad, like they don't like anything that anybody likes.
And they literally, like, they honestly can't. They have a brain problem where they cannot understand comedy. Like there's. I mean, they'll say, "Oh, you're not funny," but like you can tell by the way that they talk about bits that we do that they don't get that they're jokes. Like, they genuinely don't understand the comedic context of the things that we say. It's pretty amazing.
In all sincerity, though, you should stop listening to us and follow 5 locked accounts that tweeted each other all day and, like, want to decapitate Molly Crabapple. Like, that's... If you really want to know about what's going on in the world.
Yeah, okay, this is the last one I'm going to read, and we got actually a couple questions like this. So I'm sorry if I'm not reading your question, but people were asking us for like recommendations on books to read, and this is from Justin Clare. He says, to the odious triumvirate of fascists, I think many of your audience are, like me, finding themselves a little bit adrift in a lustily embraced but still inchoate leftism. One thing I've struggled with is finding good foundational literature to help flesh out a more informed and educated left socialist worldview. I don't want to come off as asking for official Chapo book club reading list, but I would love to know if there are any books or authors that you guys would credit as helping inform your politics. Overwrought ironic valedictation, a fan. J. Clare on Twitter.com. So yeah, we got a couple questions like this. So do you guys have any book recommendations that we could give? Letters to a young, struggling leftist?
Absolutely. So like the 3 books that made me the thinker that I am today. We got The 4-Hour Workout by Tim Ferriss. Guerrilla Mindset by Mike Cernovich. And Scott Adams' Guide to Working Out and Being a Man.
I'd say that if you want to understand contemporary American political context, a good historical basis is the Rick Perlstein trilogy, Before the Storm, Nixon Land, and The Invisible Bridge. Those books are incredibly insightful as to like what the forces that have shaped contemporary politics that we're dealing with.
Like the rise of the modern conservative movement.
Right, and like how it fits into the way that politics is done specifically in the United States. And I think that it really gives you a really useful heuristic for looking at not just Trump, but like the whole of American political scene. So I would recommend those 3. And I shout out. This is going to piss off the tankies, but Marx is actually pretty readable, and he's got a couple of books. I mean, I know Capital might be a little intimidating,
boring,
boring, but some of the stuff, for example, the 18th Brumaire of Louis Napoleon, about the rise of Napoleon III, is after the 1848 revolution in France, is not only relatively short and very pithy, it breaks down sort of the way that capitalism is both a hegemony but also has faults within itself, and how competition within a capitalist bloc kind of can lead to outcomes that wouldn't necessarily be the first choice of specific blocks within sort of a capitalist hegemony, which is something that is an important insight to remember, especially when you're dealing with a lot of people who want to simplify everything. And you can go back to like a foundational Marxist text and see that things are usually more complicated and more chaotic than those kind of simplistic explanations would have you think.
I myself am contractually obliged only to recommend books by Live Right Publishing Company that are mine. So I just like to endorse The Bend of the World by Jacob Bacharach and Jerusalem by Alan Moore, coming this September to bookstores everywhere. But no, aside from that, I would say 2 writers that have definitely influenced me a lot. And if you can look up, first being Gore Vidal. I've always loved Gore Vidal, not so much his historical novels, but I would highly recommend any of his collections of essays like United States or Perpetual War for Perpetual Peace. He's a little bit kooky about some things, but I mean, he's just a masterful writer and really cool to read. I like his stuff a lot. And then second would be any collection of Alexander Coburn. I really like his stuff too, and I feel like both of those guys have influenced my sensibility.
Yeah, reading Coburn in college was very foundational for me.
If you can get like any of those old Beat the Devil columns or any of his collections covering politics in the 80s and 90s is really great stuff.
My serious recommendations, I have a weird love of these books. Robert Caro's quadrilogy about Lyndon Johnson, I think, is fucking amazing. It's a great insight for just how Matt talked about how in Marx you find the self-defeating aspects of capitalism. I think with Caro's Chronicles of Johnson, you find the self-defeating aspects of the American political system. And they're beautifully written. They're huge books, but just, you cannot fucking put them down. They're fascinating. Johnson is such a fascinating piece of shit. I cannot recommend them enough.
Yeah, they're great.
Pity the Nation is an amazing book about Lebanon in the 80s. You sort of see how we got the horrors of the modern world in the Middle East created there since 82.